In this video, I'm going to tell you how to make a complete copy of a component class and integrate it into your Visual Studio solution and into your component DLL, and then get it to show up in Forge and be able to use it in a scenario. So this applies to any type of model that you can develop for Flames. So this video is presenting information that is not a requirement. It's just providing you with information on tools that are available to you when you're using Flames, and you'll find that you'll want to use the component copier quite a bit if you're building your own models. You have the option when you are using code from the Flames repositories to make changes to those models directly, so you don't have to make a complete copy. But of course, when you do that, it's possible, in fact likely, that in the future some change might get made to the master copy of that code in the repository with a new version of Flames. And then you'll have to maybe reintegrate your changes into that new version of the model. If you want to have complete control over the model, a better way might be to make a complete copy of the model, give it your own name, and then it'll be insulated from changes to the source code in the Flames repository. And that's I'm going to illustrate how to do that here and just make a copy of one of the simple models. So I have one of my projects open, and this project is a project in which I have installed the tutorial content, and I've also gone through the steps that are on our website for cloning and building Flames repositories. So you're supposed to have already done that before you do any of the developer tutorials. If you haven't done that and you want to follow along with me, you should go back and make sure that you have cloned and downloaded the F tutorial or any one of the Flames source code repositories, and you have a Visual Studio solution set up to build those, and you can already build those things to create your own Flames component DLLs successfully. So again, that's one of the prerequisites for all the development courses. So I'm going to assume that you have that done, and I'm going to open up my Flames solution. So I'll just click on this, and when I do that, Visual Studio opens up. So you can see I've got my Visual Studio solution here, and I've got two different repositories cloned and added to this solution, two different Visual Studio projects, the F interface and F tutorial. And as explained on the website, you have to have the source code to F interface in order to be able to build F tutorial. So I've got all that, and everything builds successfully. So let's say that I'm working with the code in this repository, the F tutorial repository, and I decided that I want to build a new model, and I want it to be a sensor model. And let's just say, just for purposes of illustration, that I want to, I've decided I want to clone or make a copy of the EXM sensor model. So really none of these models, the tutorial models, are really a good starting point for new model development because they're all too simple. The models in the F starter repository are much better models oftentimes to start from. They'll give you a little bit more code than these models will give you. So I'm going to pick the simplest of all the models that we have here, the EXM sensor model, and I'm going to make a copy of that and add it to my solution. So I'm going to go back to my launcher, and I'm going to run this tool here called the component copier. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up the component copier, and I'm going to specify my name, and it automatically puts in today's date. So I'll hit next, and what it's going to ask me to do is to browse to the folder where the source code to the component exists. So I can hit the browse button, and the current working directory of the component copier is already set to the working directory of your projects folder. So you're already pretty close to where the code should be located. So I'm going to go up a level and go over to my build folder, and that's where the folders are for things that I've downloaded, and I've got some other versions in there that I've been playing around with. So here's F tutorial, and here's F equipment, and down inside of F equipment is F sensor, and here's the folder that contains the EXM sensor source code. I can just say select folder, because all I'm looking for is the folder name. And then I hit next. This next window comes up. The component copier will automatically look at the source code that is in the folder that you selected. And as you already know, we have very strict naming conventions for Flames. We've talked about that in a previous video in this course. And this is one of the reasons why, because we follow those naming conventions, the component copier can look at the files inside that folder and identify what the class abbreviation is and what the class name is automatically. And by the way, if I haven't mentioned this already, it's our convention to put one class per folder. And this is the reason that we do this too, so that the component copier knows how to find all the files for a given class, because it assumes that all the files in a given folder by default are part of the same class. So I navigate to that folder. It correctly recognizes the class abbreviation, and I'll hit next. And so now it's asking for information about the new component that I want to create. So I'm going to call this, assume my organization prefix is ABCD. So I'll put an ABCD SN, and I'll change this to ABCD sensor. And then I'm going to browse to the folder where I want that to be placed. And I'm going to put it in the same folder with the rest of the tutorial code. And I'm going to go down inside of equipment, down inside of F sensor. And I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it ABCD sensor. And that's the folder that I'm going to select. So I've specified where I want my new code to go. I've given a new class abbreviation and a new class name, and I hit next. So based upon what I entered, it goes and looks at the folder and says, okay, these are the files that I found in that folder. Do you want to be sure you want to copy all of these? So in the unlikely event that there's some extraneous files in this folder, you have a chance to remove them from the list. So you just click on the file and say remove. That won't remove the file, it'll just remove it from the list of files that are going to be copied. Normally you'll want to copy all of them, so you'll just be able to hit next. And then when you do that, it gives you a little summary just to let you verify this is the class, this is where I'm getting it, this is where I'm going to put the new class. Are you sure that's what you want? So you say yes, finish, and it gives you a little status here and says everything's copied, and then you can say exit. So now that that code is there, we're going to go back to our Visual Studio solution, and we're going to right click on this filter. Visual Studio calls these things filter. We're going to say new filter, and we're going to name it the same as our class. And then I'm going to right click on this filter, and I'm going to say add existing item. And I'm going to navigate over to this new folder that I just created, F equipment, F sensor, there's ABCD sensor. And I'm going to just highlight all the files there. Those are the ones that all got created by the component copier. I'll highlight all of them. I'll say add, so they're here. And then I'm not totally done yet, but I'm going to go ahead and build my solution. So you can't see it off screen here, but I'm going to say build solution, and it's going to rebuild that entire project, since that's what Visual Studio does when you add or remove files from a project. I just want to make sure that everything's still building correctly, and it did. Everything succeeded. So I need to do one last thing before I can try this out. I need to go to the initialize routine for this particular component. And I need to make sure that it gets initialized correctly when these applications are initialized. So I'm going to go down here to my equipment classes, and I'm going to take this line right here. I have all these things arranged in alphabetical order. I'm going to copy that file, copy that line, and I'm going to put in the class initialize function for my new class, ABC sensor. And this is talked about over in the Entity Model Developer course, so I'm not going to spend any time explaining it in any detail right here. But this is the code that gets called in Fire when Fire initializes this particular DLL. So I'm going to take that line, I'm going to copy it, and I don't initialize sensors in Flash, so I don't have anything that I have to do here. But sensors also need to get initialized in Forge. And I'm going to paste that line right here. And in this case, I want the UI version of the class initialize. So when I made that, I'm going to build again. Oh, I got an error. This is ABCD sensor. And so it's going to be up here. I just said ABC. So we'll build again. So everything's fine. So now we're going to run Forge and just see if our new sensor shows up. So I'll log in as my user, and here's my Forge window. So what I'm going to do first of all is just make sure that I didn't get any error messages when my DLL loaded, and sure enough, it's still loading successfully. So I can tell that from my status window. Then I'm going to go over here to my parameters window menu and open my sensors window. And what I want to see is, does my sensor show up? And sure enough, it does. So there's the other sensors that are out there. There's the EXM sensor, and these are the parameters for the EXM sensor. You can see I've got exactly the same parameters because this is an exact copy. So after you've copied the model that you're interested in modifying, you're free to start, you're ready to start making changes to it. And we never build any models from scratch at Turnitin. We always find the model that is closest to the model that we want to develop. And we make a copy of it just like you saw me do here. And then you can see it just takes just a few minutes. And then you're ready to go into that code and make any changes that you want. I know that you'll find this helpful as you're developing your own brand new models for Flames. Thank you for watching, and thank you for using Flames.